Rocky Balboa is a boxer and debt collector or leg breaker for loan shark named Anthony Gazzo and lives in the Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia. Despite his rough job, Rocky has a gentle soul and a soft spot for animals. Rocky is a club fighter, a boxer who participates in local matches with little chance of making it to the big leagues. The owner of the gym, Mickey Goldmill, sees potential in Rocky, but criticizes him for wasting his talent on meaningless fights and working for a loan shark. When heavyweight boxing world champion Apollo Creed plans to hold a title bout in Philadelphia during the upcoming United States bicentennial, he's told that the challenger injured his hand and will be unable to fight him on the set date. Only 5 weeks are remaining, and all the other potential replacements are either booked up or unable to get into shape in time. Creed has already invested a lot into the fight and decides to give a local contender a chance to challenge him. After going through a list of local fighters, Apollo's attention is drawn to Rocky, nicknamed the Italian Stallion. Because of his Italian heritage, Apollo sees Rocky as a perfect candidate for this fight. Rocky is attracted to a shy woman called Adrian Panino, who works at a pet store. Her brother and Rocky's friend Paulie forces her to go out on a date with Rocky. Rocky is invited to meet the promoter. When he goes to his office, he's told about the fight. At first, Rocky turns down the offer, but the promoter convinces him to take up the opportunity and tells him he will earn $150,000 from the fight. Mickey Goldmill used to be a bantamweight fighter and offers to become Rocky's manager and trainer for the fight, knowing that this is his last chance to make something of himself as well. At first, Rocky turns down the offer because he's angry at Mickey for not showing interest in him during all the time he trained at the gym. Mickey leaves the house and Rocky chases after him and accepts the offer. Paulie later becomes jealous of Rocky's chance and the money he will make. Rocky trains by jogging through the streets of Philadelphia, working out in a meat locker by punching slabs of beef, and performing rigorous exercises to get into shape. As Rocky trains with Mickey, Apollo continues to underestimate him. The night before the match, Rocky visits the venue and is not sure he can win the fight. He tells Adrian that he does not believe he can win. All he wants to do is go the distance against Creed, which no other fighter has managed to do, and prove himself to everyone. The next day, Creed enters the ring dressed as George Washington and Uncle Sam. To everyone's surprise, Rocky knocks him down in the first round, the first time that Creed has ever been knocked down. Creed is surprised and starts taking the fight more seriously. The fight goes the full 15 rounds, with Rocky refusing to be knocked out, despite being battered and bloodied. The two fighters sustain various injuries. Rocky is hit to the head and his eyes swell, requiring his right eyelid to be cut to restore his vision. Apollo sustains internal bleeding and a broken rib, which leaves him struggling to breathe. Apollo wins the fight by split decision, but Rocky earns the respect of the crowd, the media, and Apollo himself. He also proves to himself that he has what it takes to go the distance, a victory that is far more meaningful to him than the title itself. The film ends with Rocky calling out for Adrian, who rushes into the ring and they embrace. The Rocky II picks up immediately where the first movie left off, focusing on the aftermath of the iconic boxing match between Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed. Both Rocky and Apollo are taken to the hospital after the brutal fight. Despite Rocky losing the match, he is still hailed as a hero and a symbol of hope for the underdog. In the hospital, Apollo challenges Rocky to a rematch, but Rocky, who sustained severe injuries to his eye, insists that he is retired from boxing. Apollo's pride is wounded because he barely won the first match, and he feels the need to prove that his victory was not a fluke. Adrian supports his choice, as do his doctors, who go on to reveal that Rocky will require surgery for a detached retina, a condition that could lead to permanent blindness. Rocky goes to see Apollo, who's recovering in his room, and asks whether Apollo gave his all in the fight. Apollo says he did, and Rocky thanks him. After Rocky is released from the hospital, an agent tells him about how he can make money from endorsements. He proposes to Adrian, and she accepts, and they marry in a small ceremony. Adrian becomes pregnant shortly afterward. Rocky is now a celebrity and is offered various opportunities, including endorsements, but struggles with the demands of fame and his lack of education, which makes it difficult for him to succeed in anything outside of boxing. Financial troubles begin to mount as Rocky's money from the first fight dwindles. He attempts to get a regular job, first working in a meatpacking plant and then trying his hand at other odd jobs, but he finds it difficult to adjust to a life outside of boxing. Meanwhile, Apollo is obsessed with the idea of a rematch, feeling that his reputation as the world's best fighter is tarnished by his close victory over Rocky. He's receiving a lot of hate mail, claiming he fixed the fight in order to protect his reign as champ. Apollo begins a public campaign to force Rocky into a rematch, taunting him in the media and questioning his manhood. Despite Rocky's reluctance, the pressure from Apollo, the media, and his own financial difficulties push him to reconsider. However, Adrian is strongly against Rocky fighting again, fearing for his health, especially with his impaired vision. As Rocky struggles with his decision, he is caught between the desire to provide for his family and the fear of losing everything, including his life. Adrian confronts Rocky about the danger of returning to boxing and reminds him of the risk to his eyesight. But he insists, arguing it is the only way he can provide for them, as he knows nothing else. Adrian, disappointed at the fact that Rocky broke his promise, doesn't want to support him. Adrian's opposition to the rematch puts a strain on their marriage. As Rocky begins training, Adrian becomes stressed and overworked at her job at the pet store. One day, she collapses and is rushed to the hospital, where she goes into premature labor. The baby is born healthy, but Adrian falls into a coma, leaving Rocky devastated. Rocky is unable to focus on his training while Adrian is in a coma. He spends a lot of time at the hospital, praying for her recovery. Eventually, Adrian wakes up and, seeing Rocky's dedication and the toll the situation has taken on him, she tells him to win the fight. With Adrian's blessing, Rocky fully commits to his training, embarking on an intense regimen under the guidance of Mickey. The rematch takes place on Thanksgiving Day, and it is highly anticipated by both the media and the public. Apollo's goal is beating Rocky in no more than 2 rounds to prove the first match was a fluke for Rocky. The fight is brutal, with both fighters taking heavy punishment. Apollo, confident and aggressive, dominates the early rounds, but Rocky's resilience and determination keep him in the fight. Creed wants to win by knockout in order to erase any doubts about his superiority and ignores his trainer's advice to stay back. The two boxers go toe-to-toe in an epic battle of endurance and willpower. In the final round, both fighters are exhausted. Rocky, summoning all his remaining strength, lands a powerful punch that sends Apollo to the mat. Rocky collapses as well, and both men struggle to get up before the referee's count. In a dramatic moment, Rocky manages to stand up just as the referee reaches the count of 10, winning the match by knockout. Rocky III picks up after the events of Rocky II. Rocky Balboa is now the heavyweight boxing champion of the world and enjoys a life of luxury and fame. Rocky has become a household name. He's featured in commercials, making public appearances, and enjoying the perks of fame. The montage shows Rocky defending his title against various opponents, all of whom he easily defeats. During this time, a new contender rises, Clubber Lang. Clubber is hungry, determined, and aggressive. He is a menacing and ruthless fighter who is desperate for a shot at the title. He views Rocky as weak and undeserving of the championship, seeing him as a symbol of what he despises in the world of boxing, a sellout who has lost his edge. Rocky attends a ceremony to unveil a statue in his honor in Philadelphia. During the ceremony, Rocky announces his retirement, much to the disappointment of his fans. However, Clubber Lang interrupts the event, challenging Rocky to a fight and insulting him, his wife Adrian, and his trainer Mickey, saying, "Rocky has been intentionally accepting challenges from lesser opponents." The insults provoke Rocky, and he accepts the challenge, despite Mickey's objections. Mickey confesses that he picked his opponents for his title defenses in order to spare him from another beating of the kind that Creed gave him in their rematch. He says that Lang is young, powerful, and hungry. Rocky is civilized and no longer has the stamina and strength to fight a boxer of Lang's caliber. Mickey is worried that Rocky isn't taking the fight seriously and that his focus is compromised. Mickey tries to warn Rocky that he's no longer the hungry fighter he once was, but Rocky is overconfident and dismisses the concerns. On the night of the fight, tensions run high. Just before the fight, Mickey suffers a heart attack after an altercation with Clubber Lang. Rocky is distraught but still decides to go ahead with the fight, though his mind is not fully focused on it. The fight itself is short and brutal. Rocky is unprepared for Clubber's power and aggression and is knocked out in the second round, losing his title. After the fight, Rocky returns to the locker room to find Mickey in a critical condition. Mickey dies in Rocky's arms, which leaves Rocky devastated. The loss of both the fight and his beloved trainer sends Rocky into a deep depression, and he begins to question his worth and his identity as a fighter. As Rocky mourns and contemplates retirement, Creed approaches him with an offer. Apollo, understanding what Rocky's going through, offers to train him for a rematch against Clubber Lang. He believes Rocky can reclaim his title and rediscover the eye of the tiger, the fierce determination that once drove him, and they head to Los Angeles to train at Apollo's old gym. The training is rigorous and demanding, designed to rebuild Rocky's speed, agility, and confidence. However, Rocky struggles mentally and emotionally. He is still haunted by self-doubt and the fear of losing again. Adrian encourages Rocky to confront his fears and to rediscover his passion for boxing. As training progresses, Rocky slowly regains his confidence. The bond between him and Apollo deepens, moving from rivalry to a genuine friendship based on mutual respect. Rocky regains his speed, power, and fighting spirit. The build-up to the rematch is intense. Clubber Lang, still confident and aggressive, believes he will defeat Rocky again. However, this time, Rocky is prepared. The rematch is held at Madison Square Garden. Rocky, now focused and determined, uses speed and footwork to avoid Clubber's powerful punches. Rocky's new style, taught by Apollo, frustrates Clubber, who is unable to land his devastating blows. As the fight progresses, Rocky switches tactics, allowing Clubber to punch himself out and exhaust his energy. In the later rounds, Rocky begins to take control. He taunts Clubber, urging him to keep punching, knowing that Clubber's stamina is waning. In the final round, Rocky unleashes a barrage of punches, overwhelming Clubber and knocking him out, thus reclaiming his title. Afterwards, Rocky accepts Apollo's favor, a third, private rematch with him. The movie ends without showing the result of the fight. Rocky IV begins with a recap of the final moments from Rocky III, where Rocky Balboa successfully defeats Clubber Lang, becoming the world heavyweight champion again. However, the narrative soon shifts to a new threat from the Soviet Union in the form of Ivan Drago, a towering and seemingly indestructible Russian boxer. Drago is introduced as a symbol of Soviet strength, a physically imposing athlete with advanced training techniques that symbolize the industrial, machine-like efficiency of the Soviet sports program. Apollo decides to come out of retirement to challenge Ivan Drago in a high-profile exhibition match. Apollo views the match as an opportunity to prove that American fighters are still superior and to regain some of the glory of his past. The boxing exhibition takes place at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas. The event is grand, with extravagant American-themed pageantry. James Brown performs Living in America as part of Apollo's grand entrance. However, the tone quickly shifts once the fight begins. Apollo, who is past his prime and overconfident, is no match for the younger and more physically dominant Drago. The fight becomes brutal, with Drago relentlessly attacking Creed. Rocky, who is in Apollo's corner, is torn between stopping the fight to save his friend and respecting Apollo's wish to continue. In a tragic turn, Apollo's knocked out and fatally injured by Drago in the second round. Apollo's death deeply affects Rocky, who feels immense guilt for not throwing in the towel to stop the fight. Consumed by grief and anger, Rocky decides to challenge Drago himself to avenge his friend's death. Adrian tries to convince Rocky not to fight, saying that he cannot win against such a formidable opponent. Rocky, however, is determined and views the fight as necessary to redeem himself and honor Apollo's memory. Rocky travels to the Soviet Union and begins training in a remote, snow-covered cabin in Siberia, while Drago trains in scientifically advanced training facilities. Rocky chops wood, runs through deep snow, and performs grueling physical tasks. Drago uses state-of-the-art technology, including steroid injections, to enhance his already formidable physique. On the day of the fight, the atmosphere in the arena is hostile. Rocky enters the ring as a massive underdog, with almost no one expecting him to survive the fight, let alone win. The fight is brutal, with Drago initially dominating Rocky. Just as he did with Apollo, Drago's punches are powerful and devastating, and Rocky takes a significant amount of punishment. However, he refuses to go down, continually getting back up after being knocked down by Drago's powerful punches. Rocky's determination begins to wear down Drago, who becomes visibly frustrated by his inability to knock Rocky out. As Rocky lands more punches, the tide of the fight begins to turn. The Soviet crowd, initially hostile, starts to respect Rocky's tenacity and spirit. This culminates in the crowd cheering for Rocky, chanting his name as he takes control of the fight. In the final rounds, Rocky delivers a series of powerful blows to Drago, ultimately knocking him out and winning the fight. After the fight, Rocky gives a speech advocating for mutual understanding and peace. The film begins immediately after the events of Rocky IV. Rocky Balboa has just defeated Ivan in the Soviet Union. However, the victory comes at a great cost. Rocky sustains a lot of damage, which forces him to retire from boxing permanently. Upon returning to the United States, Rocky discovers that his financial situation has deteriorated drastically. His accountant, who was entrusted with managing his finances, has squandered all of Rocky's money on bad investments. This leaves Rocky and his family nearly penniless. Rocky is forced to sell his mansion and most of his possessions, and moves back to his old neighborhood in Philadelphia with his wife and their son. He reopens Mickey's gym and takes a young fighter named Tommy under his wing. Tommy is a talented but inexperienced boxer with a rough past. Rocky sees potential in Tommy and decides to mentor him, hoping to relive his glory days through the young fighter. However, as Tommy rises in the boxing world, he becomes increasingly influenced by a corrupt promoter named George Washington Duke, who entices Tommy with promises of fame and fortune. Duke has been trying to get Rocky back in the ring to make a lot of money. As Tommy's success grows, his relationship with Rocky becomes strained. Tommy begins to resent Rocky's guidance, feeling that he is being held back by Rocky's old-school approach. Meanwhile, Rocky's relationship with his son, Robert, deteriorates as well. Robert feels neglected and overshadowed by Tommy, leading to feelings of resentment and alienation. Tommy publicly challenges Rocky, accusing him of being washed up. The confrontation escalates into a street fight, where Rocky ultimately defeats Tommy, reaffirming his toughness and resilience. Rocky realizes that his true worth lies not in his physical strength, but in his role as a husband, father, and mentor. Rocky Balboa is now 60 years old and leads a quiet and modest life in Philadelphia. His days of glory as a heavyweight champion are long behind him. Rocky now runs a small Italian restaurant called Adrian's, named after his late wife, who passed away due to cancer. Rocky's life is marked by a deep sense of loss and nostalgia, and he frequently visits Adrian's grave and relives the memories of their time together. Rocky's relationship with his son is strained. Robert feels overshadowed by his father's legendary status and struggles to carve out his own identity. Paulie supports Rocky, but feels guilt because of how he poorly treated his sister when she was still alive, and asks Rocky to stop living in the past. A computer-simulated fight between Rocky in his prime and the current heavyweight champion, Mason Dixon predicts Rocky as the winner, sparking media buzz and public interest in the possibility of a real-life exhibition match between the two. Rocky, despite being well past his prime, feels a renewed sense of purpose and begins to consider stepping back into the ring. His desire to fight again is not driven by a need for fame or money, but by a need to reclaim his sense of self-worth and prove that he still has something left in the tank. He gets his boxing license reinstated, although not without difficulty, as the Boxing Commission initially denies him, citing his age and the potential risks involved. Against the advice of friends and family, Rocky decides to go ahead with the fight. Rocky starts training with Apollo Creed's old trainer, Duke. Unlike his earlier training sessions filled with speed and agility drills, this time, Rocky focuses on building brute strength and endurance. He knows he can't compete with Dixon's youth and speed, so he plans to use his experience. The fight takes place in Las Vegas, and despite being billed as an exhibition match, both fighters are determined to prove something to themselves and to the world. Dixon, although the reigning champion, is criticized for never having faced a truly challenging opponent, while Rocky is seen as a relic of the past, with many doubting his ability to last even a few rounds. The fight is more intense than expected, with Rocky taking heavy blows but refusing to back down. Despite the odds, Rocky manages to go the distance, lasting all 10 rounds with the younger and faster Dixon. Dixon wins, but Rocky proves to himself and others that he still had the heart of a champion. The crowd gives Rocky a standing ovation, acknowledging his courage and tenacity. Dixon also gains respect for having faced a true fighter who pushed him to his limits. Dixon earns the respect he craved, and Rocky finds peace within himself, knowing that he gave everything he had. Rocky returns home and visits Adrian's grave again, thanking her for helping him.